That summer, I was supposed to be anywhere but here. The plan, meticulously crafted since spring break, was for me to spend the glorious month of July in Seattle with my cousin. We had it all mapped out, concerts at the pier, exploring the city, just the kind of adventure you dream about during a dull school year. But life, as it often does, threw a wrench in the works. A last-minute phone call, my mom's voice tight with that particular blend of sympathy and frustration, delivered the news. My cousin had taken a bad fall on a hiking trail, a broken ankle, and just like that, my escape plan evaporated. I was officially stuck back in Taggart, Oregon, for the entire sweltering, mind-numbingly boring summer. The days stretched out before me, each one a carbon copy of the last. My parents worked full-time, leaving the house quiet and empty. My friends, my entire social circle, had seemingly vanished from the face of the earth, shipped off to summer camps, on family vacations to the coast, or busy with their own, more exciting plans that didn't include a stranded 16-year-old. I'd just gotten my driver's license a few months prior, a milestone that was supposed to signify freedom, but here I was with nowhere to go and no one to see. This was shaping up to be, without a doubt, the most tedious summer of my life. Our neighborhood was the picture of suburban tranquility, a quiet, mostly residential pocket just on the outskirts of Portland. We'd moved there when I was 6, so I'd grown up knowing every crack in the sidewalk, every overgrown hedge, and nearly every face on our street. It was a mix of young families like mine had been, older couples who'd been there for decades, and a handful of retirees who spent their days meticulously tending to their gardens. One of those families lived 3 houses down from us, the Clarks. Sam and Dana Clark, both in their mid-30s, and their 7-year-old son, Leo. They were the definition of a nice, normal suburban couple, friendly in that polite waving from the driveway kind of way, but not overly chatty. We'd exchange the usual pleasantries if we were getting the mail at the same time. Comments about the weather, how quickly the summer was going, but that was the extent of it. I didn't know Leo well. At 16, I was far too old to be part of his world of scooters and action figures. But I'd see him sometimes, a little blonde blur zipping down the sidewalk on his scooter or chasing bubbles in their front yard, lost in his own little universe. It was on a Tuesday morning, the week feeling like it had already given up, that the monotony was broken. I was lounging in the living room, still in my pajamas at 9 a.m., pouring a bowl of cereal and contemplating another day of nothing when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Peering through the front window, I was surprised to see Dana Clark standing on our porch, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, looking a little flustered. I opened the door. "Hey, Rachel," she said, offering a slightly rushed smile. "I am so sorry to bother you, and I know this is incredibly last minute, but Sam and I both have to head into Portland for a work thing today. It's a whole mess. Our usual sitter just canceled on us." She took a breath. "Any chance at all you'd be up for watching Leo for a few hours? Just until 2 or 3, I promise." I just blinked at her. The request had caught me completely off guard. I had literally never babysat anyone before. Not a soul. I'd never even been responsible for a pet goldfish. I was about to stammer out an excuse, my mind racing for a plausible reason to say no, when she quickly added, "I'll pay you $60. $60. For just a few hours. My hesitation must have been obvious because she kept talking, her words tumbling out in a reassuring stream. "Leo's super chill, I swear. All he wants to do is watch cartoons and play on his Nintendo Switch. Honestly, It's more like just being in the house with him than actual work. You can just do your homework or read or whatever. That kind of money for essentially hanging out. My summer of boredom suddenly presented a very lucrative and very easy exit strategy. Yeah, I found myself saying, yeah, okay, I can do that. Relief washed over her face. Oh, thank you, Rachel, you're a lifesaver. She gave me the whirlwind tour of the essentials once we were inside her house. Snacks were in the fridge, the emergency numbers were written on a notepad on the kitchen counter. Leo had no allergies, and the rules were 1 hour of video games followed by some outside time. It all seemed simple enough. By 9:30, with a final wave and a chorus of thank yous. Dana and Sam were out the door, and I was standing alone in the Clarks' living room. Leo was on the floor, deeply focused on constructing a towering, precarious Lego fortress. He looked up at me with a small, uncertain smile. You want to play? He asked, holding up a handful of bricks. I smiled back, my nerves starting to settle. Sure, I said, and sat down on the carpet beside him. True to Dana's word, the first couple of hours were peaceful, almost enjoyable. We built an elaborate Lego city, then he absolutely annihilated me in several rounds of Mario Kart on his Switch. Around noon, I navigated the unfamiliar kitchen to make him lunch. A classic peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a handful of grapes, and some crackers arranged on a plate. He was a sweet kid, polite and talkative in that earnest, unself-conscious way young children have, asking me questions about high school and my favorite colors. After lunch, he wanted to go outside, so we moved to the backyard. I brought a book out to the patio and settled into a lounge chair, half reading, half keeping an eye on him as he kicked a soccer ball against the fence. The sun was warm, the day was quiet, and I remember thinking this babysitting thing was a pretty sweet gig. I was getting paid to relax. It was around 1:00 p.m. when the normalcy of the day shattered. The sharp, electronic chime of the front doorbell echoed through the house. Leo stopped mid-kick, the soccer ball rolling to a stop against the fence. We both froze for a second, looking at each other. No one was supposed to come by, expecting anyone. I asked him, trying to sound light and joking, but I was already standing up, my book forgotten. He shook his head, his earlier ease replaced by a slight wariness. No. We went back inside together. A lesson drilled into me by my parents since childhood kicked in. Never, ever open the door without checking who it is first. I went to the front door and peered out through the small, vertical window set into the side of it. A man stood on the porch. He was tall, maybe 6'1", and looked to be in his mid to late 30s. Despite the warm summer weather, he wore a dark beanie pulled down over his hair and a faded gray hoodie with old sweatpants. Something about him immediately felt off. It wasn't that he looked explicitly dangerous, but he seemed utterly out of place. He didn't belong on this tidy, suburban street. He rang the doorbell again, a quick, impatient jab, then took a step back and shoved his hands deep into his pockets, looking around. Do you know him? I asked Leo, keeping my voice low. Leo stood on his tiptoes to try and see out the window. No, he said, but his voice had a new, thin edge to it. But he came here before, last week. A cold trickle of unease went down my spine. What do you mean, he came here before? I was playing outside by myself. Leo whispered, his eyes wide. He parked his car in the street and came up to the house. I didn't open the door. Mom says not to. He just stood there for a minute, like he is now, and then he left. My heart began to beat a little harder, a dull thump against my ribs. This changed things. This wasn't a lost delivery driver. Making sure the deadbolt was engaged, I cracked the main door open just an inch, the sturdy screen door still separating us. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual and much older than I felt. "Can I help you?" The man seemed momentarily startled to see me, blinking as if he'd been expecting someone else. Hey, yeah, I'm with a flooring company. We're doing free inspections in the area today, checking for subfloor water damage. It'll just take a few minutes of your time." I hesitated, my grip tightening on the door. "This isn't my house," I said. "I'm just the babysitter." "Right, of course," he said, nodding a little too quickly. "But I'm not selling anything, I promise. It's completely free. I just need to go room to room with a moisture meter. It's for a local advertising campaign we're running. If you qualify, you could get a big discount on future services." His words sounded smooth, rehearsed, like he was reading from a telemarketer's script. Everything inside me was screaming no. "No thanks," I said, my voice firmer now. "We're not interested." He gave me a thin, perfunctory smile and a nod. "All right, you have a good day." But he didn't immediately turn to leave. He lingered on the porch for a second too long, his eyes scanning the front of the house one more time, before finally giving a small wave and walking down the steps. I watched him through the window as he crossed the lawn and got into a beat-up, silver Nissan sedan parked at the curb, but he didn't drive away. He just sat in the driver's seat, his hands resting on the steering wheel, not moving. Leo tugged on my sleeve. "He's doing the same thing," he whispered, his voice small and scared. "He did that last time, too." That was the final straw for me. I closed the door firmly, twisted the deadbolt, and then, for good measure, yanked the living room curtain shut so he couldn't see inside. I didn't want to completely terrify Leo, but I was deeply unsettled. My hands were trembling slightly as I pulled out my phone. I sent a quick text to my mom, and then a separate one to Dana Clark, explaining that a man from a flooring company had come to the door and was now just sitting in his car out front. Dana's reply came a few minutes later. "We don't have any floor inspections scheduled. That's so weird. Call me immediately if he comes back. Thank you for telling me." The man still didn't leave. From the kitchen window, which offered a sliver of a view of the street, I could see his car. The engine was off. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't writing anything down. He was just sitting, waiting, my stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. I felt silly for being so scared. What was he really doing? But every instinct I had was telling me that something wasn't right. I walked over to the wall-mounted landline phone in the kitchen, unclipped the receiver, and kept it on the counter next to me, just in case. Leo, sensing the sharp shift in the atmosphere, abandoned his toys and came to sit close to me on the couch. We turned a cartoon back on, but neither of us was really watching it. After about 15 minutes of tense silence, I dared to check the front window again. The silver Nissan was gone. A wave of relief washed over me. "See, he's gone," I said to Leo, trying to sound convincing, probably just a weirdo. But something made me walk through the house to the side window in the dining room, the one that faced the side yard and the wooden fence that ran along the property line. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't gone. He was there. This time, he was standing in the side yard, right by the fence, partially obscured by a large hydrangea bush. He wasn't doing anything. Not trying to look in windows, not trying the gate. He was just standing there, perfectly still, as if he belonged there, as if he was just a man admiring the shrubbery. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. This had just escalated from weird to terrifying. I moved quickly, grabbing Leo's hand. Hey, let's go hang out in your room for a bit, okay? We can bring the switch. He didn't ask any questions. He just nodded, his small hand gripping mine tightly. We hurried upstairs. I closed his bedroom door, locked it, and pulled us both over to the far corner, away from the windows. Then, with fingers that were now shaking badly, I dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm and steady. I tried to keep my own voice low and clear, describing the man, what he'd said, what he was wearing, his car, and what he was currently doing standing in the side yard. I gave her the address. Stay on the line with me, she instructed. An officer is just a few blocks away. Those few minutes felt like hours. Leo sat quietly on the floor, fiddling with a small toy car in his lap, his eyes occasionally flicking up to mine. We didn't hear the doorbell again. But after what felt like an eternity, I heard the faint, beautiful sound of a police siren in the distance, growing steadily closer. I dared to peek out from the side of the bedroom blinds. A patrol car was pulling up to the curb, its lights flashing silently. The man in the side yard was gone. There was a firm knock on the front door. After confirming the officer's badge through the peephole, I opened it. I poured out the whole story, everything from Leo recognizing him to him standing by the fence. The officer took a statement, then walked around the yard. He pointed out faint but clear footprints in the soft dirt along the side of the house, right where I'd seen him standing. They said they'd patrol the area more frequently and told me to call immediately if I saw the man or his car again. Dana and Sam arrived home about an hour later. I was still pretty shaken up. I filled them in on everything that had happened. They were disturbed and angry, but also immensely grateful that I'd acted so quickly. Dana hugged me tight and said, "You have really good instincts, Rachel. Thank you for protecting him." She paid me the $60 she'd promised. I took it, but it felt strange in my hand. It felt less like payment for a job and more like hush money, a token for an afternoon that had spiraled into something dark and frightening. I didn't babysit again for the rest of that summer. I never saw the man or his beat-up silver car again. But the experience left a permanent mark. Sometimes when I'm walking home late or sitting alone in a quiet house, I think about him. I think about how casual he was, how normal he tried to seem, how his story was just plausible enough to make you doubt your own fear. I think about how easily people like that can blend into the background, becoming just another face in the crowd, all while they're watching and waiting for an opening. He didn't break in. He didn't try to force a window or kick down a door. He didn't need to. He just had to knock, and that was somehow worse. His quiet, persistent presence was more terrifying than any overt threat. It was a lesson in trusting that gut feeling, that cold prickle of fear, because sometimes it's the only thing standing between a normal day and something unthinkable.